Salut. My syrup-sipping statesman. Yesterday I got a nice fresh package of 100% USDA-approved DXM via the good folks at the Postal Service. We deliver legal psychedelics for you. Again, my stats. Male, 20, 74 kilograms, 155 pounds, coming off of a legit cold, but otherwise healthy, sound, and physically fit. 6:30 p.m. Being the Dex freak that I am, I nearly immediately whipped out my scales and gel caps, and prepared a 300 mg bundle of joy. This was taken with 2 store-brand Tussin cold caps, not necessarily for the extra 20 mg of DXM but for the peg mixture inside. I then munched on 7 sucres, the DXM-only variety, for an extra 105 mg. 7:30 walked around for an hour but didn't really feel anything, and I was on a sufficiently empty stomach. I took another 100 mgs from my powder, but instead of gel capping it I put it in vodka and shot it down raw. Lots of people think that the taste of DXM is absolutely putrid, and it is, but not in a conventional way. During my previous trips I could taste the DXM on my tongue for a good portion of the experience, and I wholly enjoyed that bitter but enticing flavor. Strange, huh? Well, to each his own. In any event, I think most of you would be wise not to taste the DXM directly unless you know what you're up against. In total I took less than 1 shot of liquor, so I was not drunk for this trip, and I do not recommend mixing lots of alcohol and DXM, because it's just not that fun. 8 o'clock, so my total was around 525 mg at this point, but 20 minutes later I got a powerful urge and had to purge, so I spent some quality time with the old toilet and probably lost a good 150 to 200 mg of my most recent DXM. Chatted on IRC for a little, but left to watch TV. 8:30 I made my way back up to my room and drank about 1.5 to 2 ounces of Tussin syrup which I had from previous trips. No prob, though after having drank psychedelic booze for my last couple of trips, damn, the syrup tasted like Kool-Aid. It was pathetically easy to drink. 9 o'clock watched wrestling, all the time slowly beginning to trip more and more. Sounds were flanging, though no visual effects, I think mostly because I was in a well-lit room with a sober roommate, who doesn't know I do much more than drink excessively, so don't tell him, huh? I took a recommended dose of NyQuil to help me sleep a few hours from present, but don't go abusing the NyQuil, huh kids? It isn't for fun. 11:20 time flows strangely on DXM, does it not? Suddenly I found that the program was over, so I grabbed my bowl and my bag, and headed down to my private smoke spot, which is in the basement of my building. This room has been described by others as a bat cave, which would be true if it had bats and if it were a cave. I would describe it more accurately as a cockroach air conditioning machinery habitat. I forgot my flashlight, but being on DXM I wasn't afraid. I climbed down into the darkness, and my brain was suddenly thrown for a loop. DXM likes the darkness. I realize that the patterns people see in closed-eye visuals, CEVs, are the same thing as open-eye visuals, OEVs. You just need some sort of dark for the visual to get going. I'm starting to think that CEVs and OEVs simply may be a different perception of the same thing. Here's how I can best describe it. In the dim light of the room, I could see somewhat normally. But once I locked my doubled vision in one space, what I could perceive began to, well, fluctuate. First the image seemed to turn negative, lights and darks reversing themselves. Then objects seemed to stretch or bend in wild ways. For those who think that DXM isn't a visual drug, I think you just haven't given it a chance. As my field of vision began to increasingly get jumbled and splayed out, the DXM pattern emerged, slowly. It looks like a mass of fractals or some other high math geometric pattern, composed of infinite little elements all with different colors. I was looking down tunnels of dim lights and running parallel to a vast wall, as if I were flying through space. The only thing which disrupted my hallucination was the occasional lighting of the bowl, but even this image was simply incorporated into the overall visual effect, and soon lost any coherent meaning to me. I could feel myself standing on the edge of a vast chasm or something, looking down into pure DXM chaos but holding back with only a sliver of my associated, as opposed to dissociated, self. I didn't jump into the rift this time, that will come later after more learning and experience. Weed doesn't usually have a big effect on my DXM trips, but this time it did, and I feel I started the hallucination cycle all over again, while also catching a wicked buzz. 11:40 chatted again on IRC for a while, as the computer I was on shifted and moved around in front of me. I actually had some coherent conversations with people in the lab, so no one suspected I was more than maybe a little drunk. 12:30 a.m. made my way back up to my room, took out my contacts, and crashed in bed. All of my movements and actions previous to going to sleep had been carefully guided by DXM. I think, in that I was doing everything efficiently and logically. But when I went to sleep, all I could do was toss and turn. Eventually I got hungry as the trip wound down, so I stumbled out and reheated the most delicious pizza I ever ate. I went back to bed and woke up the next morning feeling groggy from the loss of 2 to 3 hours of sleep, but pretty good otherwise, and no hangover. So a good trip. Maybe I was a little eager in going on it so soon, but I was horribly excited to finally have my new powder, and I had to give it a test run, so c'est la vie. This trip was a very high second plateau, and I may have skirted the third. There's no telling how much DXM I lost when I puked, so it's iffy. But I never felt totally and completely dissociated, something you get for sure on the higher plats. So I'd pin it down at a high second. Let me know what you think. Croc_Hunter DM Croc_Hunter DM at hotmail.com